And we're back to the Python Institute, this time lab number 4.1.3.6, and we're finally working in module number 4. This one is a leap year, and we are working with some functions. Let's go ahead and check out this scenario and see what we can do with it. So the objectives: writing parameterized functions, utilizing the return statement, and testing of functions. So the scenario: your task is to write a function which takes one argument, a year, and returns true if it is leap year and false otherwise. The seed of the function is already sewn into the skeleton in the editor. Note, we've also provided some short testing code which you can use to test your function. Code uses two lists, one with test data, one containing the expected results. The code will tell you if any of the results are invalid. And I really like the way that this code is written out just because of the fact that it has this testing built in. And even though you don't necessarily have to understand it, I'm going to go into it anyway. So here on lines 6 and 7, we see that we have two different lists. The first list of test data is multiple years. The second list of test results is a false true list of objects. And what happens is these guys actually line up with the years above them. So we can see 1900 should not be a leap year. 2000 should be a leap year. 2016 should be. 1987 should not be. So that's pretty nice of them to provide that for us. But then as we look through here, let's see, for I in range of len test data. So it's cycling through all of the test data, but is doing it with a range operator. So it's a number that it's getting. It's saying that there's 4 objects there. And remember, these are 0, 1, 2, 3. So the I is going to be somewhere between 0 and 3. It's going to start off with 0. So year is test data 0. So it will start off with 1900, and then it will print the year. And then it will call via our is leap year function that we're going to be writing up here. Is it a leap year? And then it checks the result of that leap year function, and it says, hey, does it equal test results I? So it's the same I we have up here that we used to define our test data. And it says, is the matching result equal to our expected test data? And then if everything is great, it returns back okay. Otherwise, it says failed. So it's pretty cool, the fact that they built this in, and it is quite functional and quite easy to understand if you take time to walk through it. All right, so we've got a couple of things otherwise that we're working on here. The first one, obviously, is that we have this function that we need to write. We need to put some sort of a function in there. We need to figure out some way to be able to use a return statement to return a true or a false. And most importantly, we need to figure out a way to determine if something is a leap year or not. Now, if you've been following along in all the labs up to this point, you may recall that there was something about a leap year previously, and you would be right. In fact, if you're following along with my videos, I mentioned, go ahead and pay attention at this point because you'll want to use this information later. And that was in lab number 31113. In 31113, you had the rules right here in order to determine whether something was a leap year. And then you had this code that you wrote. You wrote this code. So your code may look a little bit differently than mine. But so now we can go ahead and we can use this code to determine whether something is a leap year and use that as part of our function in our new commands. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to hit Control-C on my keyboard to copy that. I'm going to come up here into my new function in 4136, and I'm going to hit Control-V. First thing I note before I go any further is the fact that this code is not indented. Because it's not indented, it's not part of the function, so I need to come along here and I need to indent each one of these lines to make sure that they are indented properly. So I'm just going to come up here and hit Tab, down, Tab, and tab each one of those in. So now they are all part of the function. Remember, other scripting languages use things like curly braces to define what's included in a function. Python uses tabs or a white space in order to identify what is part of a function. All right, so far, so now we've got our function and it does something. It doesn't do the way we want it to, though. Right now, what it's doing is it's printing out whether it's a common year or a leap year. What we want it to do is we want it to return true or return false. So we need to remove the print statements and replace them with some sort of a return function. And it turns out we literally can use the return true command in order to return something as true, or return false to return something as false. So let's check that out. What am I going to do? I'm going to start right here. It says print common year. It tells me should be true if it's a leap year or false otherwise. So I'm going to use just the return command or the return statement. And I'm going to type false. So what happens is if this right here is evaluated as true, it's going to return. So it's going to exit out of this function. And it's going to return a false statement. Be careful with your case sensitivity. The capital F lowercase ALSE is critical for the false command. You'll notice that the color right there is kind of a pale blue. If I change it to a lowercase f, it turns black. Because the IDE, the editor, knows that that is not false in Python. That is false in Python. Okay, well, if return false does common year, then I'll put that right there. And then for leap year, I'll just change those to return true. And now I have one last option right here, one last scenario that the script doesn't necessarily tell me I need to work with, but it's there in my original code, so I'm going to keep working with it. And it talks about something not being part of the Gregorian years or the Gregorian calendar. Well, if we think about this logically, something is either a leap year or it's not a leap year. Only items in the Gregorian calendar can be leap years. Therefore, if you are out of the Gregorian calendar, then it is not possible to be a leap year. Therefore, the return should be false. If you follow my logic, hopefully that makes sense. At this point, we should be able to just go ahead and run this, and the isLeapYear function right here will pass the year in, and then return the result and tell us if we worked it properly or not. So let's go ahead and run that. And it reported back year 1900, okay, 2000, okay, 2016, okay, and 1987, okay. Now, this is not saying that these are all leap years. This is saying that according to the test data and the test and the expected results, they are matching up correctly.